Hello and welcome to Nitro Talk. Today we're going to be looking at this engine. I guess you could say it is a WoW Racing OS 21. That didn't make any sense, huh? So, what's the deal? What's the story with this engine? So, a few years back, before I get into it, please like and subscribe for more videos on nitro engines and related topics. A few years ago, when the Redcats came out, started to get fairly popular. I don't know, I'm sure some of you are familiar with the Let's Break Redcats series on YouTube by Ali Shanmao. I am sure he sold a ton of Redcats with those videos. But again, this was a few years ago. I'd say at this point, 7 or so, 8 years ago. And at that point, I was still really green with nitro. Not saying I wouldn't have bought a Redcat if I wasn't green, but maybe that's the case. Anyways, I happened to come across, so we're talking about the Aftershock 3.5. It's the big block short course truck looking. They're pretty big. They look about 8th scale, a little bit bigger than a standard short course truck. But anyway, so I had come across a pretty good deal on one. I wanted to get one of the Aftershock big block trucks, and so I found a pretty good deal on one. Now it came with two different engines. It came with the OS 21 or an SH 21. I got a good deal on one of them first. I don't remember which. And then after I bought the one, I found a really good deal on the other. I think it was a return, and it ended up being, I don't think they ever got it started. They just, bought it and immediately returned it. It looked like it was brand new, but I'd gotten it really cheap. So I had two Redcat Aftershocks, one with the SH21 and one with this OS21. At that time, being, still green, I was knowledgeable enough to know that did not look right. And I don't know if this was the reason I joined a forum, but this was when I probably did the most RC forums participating, was talking about the Aftershocks and these engines. The consensus at the time, so these came out and immediately a lot of people screamed knockoff. That's not an OS. OS would not do that. OS, those are not real OS engines, some people were saying, right? But then, it didn't take very long for enough research to be done, things to get verified, and the truth came out to be that, yes, these absolutely are OS engines manufactured for Redcat, who then put I don't believe this is an OS cooling head. I guess it could be, but I'm not familiar with anyone. What this is the OS VG. This is the 21 VG engine. It is a copy, knockoff, not a knockoff, but it's OS made it and the 21 VG. This is an unlabeled 21 VG, let's say that. But this is not the 21 VG head. This to me does not even look like an OS head. It's a one-piece regular head, just like the 21VG has a standard plug. It could be made by OS. I don't believe it is, but who knows? That was never really. But so the original OS parts, as you can see, are all perfectly fine, super OS quality. I'm sure these are the exact same parts that come on the 21VG. Now the 21VG, as I'm sure some of you know, is an ABL engine, same as the OS 30VG. Both of those are not chrome plated. They have what is called the Advanced Bimetallic Liner, or the ABL. And so that's what OS did with the 21VG and the 30VG. And so since this is essentially a 21VG, it is the same way. Now, aside from it being not chrome plated, gorgeous cuts, and it's still the same beautiful OS work, just without chrome. The crank, as you can see, is an absolute. I'm going to think of a term for cranks like this. I call them blocky. It's a blockhead crank. It's not a Lego piece. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to come up with a name for just blocky, chunky, nothing, no work done to them cranks. And this is certainly one of them. But as you can see, getting up close and personal on that carb insulator on it, everything is just beautiful OS quality. It's all the same metals used in the regular 21VG, same exact carb, except, and it doesn't have the stamp for the model in it. And it's got the WOW Racing plate there on it. Very unique. That's the one-way bearing, as you can see, genuine OS. And so this is, now the 21VG comes with a standard crank, whereas this is the Redcat only crank that is threaded. So let me go ahead and I'll kind of throw this back together and I'll show you how the Redcat drive system is set up on this thing. Let's go ahead and throw yield. The piston, as you can see, is just, or the rod there is just a hunk of aluminum, no trimming done to it at all. When they pull start engines with that extra pin are always a pain to get back, on and off of the crank pin. Always spin the sleeve as you're bringing it down in. Make sure it's lined up properly. Got one more shim to go there. So the two engines, the SH and the OS, I ran both of them. I ran both of those trucks, and I'll admit I did try to. I wasn't really into racing at that time. I had just started going to tracks, so I had taken them to a track a couple times. I'm sure even I've got some video and photos on my computer of them from back in the day. Maybe I'll pull out. But, you know, I found, they're both pull start. I found the two engines to be pretty much identically matched. There was not one that was head and shoulders above the other. They both, you know, and again, I was a lot greener back then, so I'm sure I had trouble breaking them in, keeping them running, getting them tuned good. But I did work it out. I did run them. I had plenty of fun with them. I don't think I have either one of them anymore. I did end up getting rid of both of them. But had kept this OS engine. I thought it was a really cool, something different. So when I decided to get rid of the Aftershock, I believe I just threw another SH21 on the one that had the OS, and I snagged the OS engine here for the collection. So now this, oh yeah, I wanted to point this out too. This is very unique. This is the first time I've ever seen this. I'm hoping someone could tell me, is the VG set up like this as well? It only has half of a pinch bolt. There's nothing, that side is blank, okay, and the inside, it's just filled in on there, and it has the one half of the pinch bolt. Isn't that wild? That's the first engine I've ever seen that's like that. Is the VG set up like that as well? I'd be interested to know if someone could tell me. I've never had a 21 VG. I have had a couple of 30 VGs. Did like those, of course. How could you not? Even with it being ABL liner, you know, still got plenty of power for a Savage. It's what I had. I believe both of them were in Savages. But anyway, so when I get this back together here, the front of it, you see it, instead of a standard crank, it has the threaded crank. It has a drive washer, which is normally what's on like airplanes, so you could butt a prop up against it. It turns a prop. But a few of these cheaper, you know, HSP and Redcat, for whatever reason, I never really understood it, used that setup with the drive washer. So I almost got this back. You know what? You don't need to watch me put the pull start on. I can go ahead and show you this. So that's the drive washer. All right. Your collet goes on first. This is how it's set up for the Redcat Aftershock. Collet goes on first. Who's on first? The collet. Well, why is that thing not wanting to go on there? There we go. Always pull your crank out far as you can and push the collet down as far as you can. So then the drive washer goes on the collet. The flywheel goes onto the drive washer, and then the clutch shaft, pilot shaft goes on next. Of course, you'll use a flywheel wrench, and as you can see, I have modified this one. I use this with up to 6 shoe clutches. Like I use this with the Orion CRF V6 clutch. So I'm going to put that on there so that I can tighten this properly. You have to hold the flywheel so that you can tighten this down real good. Alright, so now that we have our flywheel on, clutch goes on next. Now, the whole thing with clutches going one way, how do you feel about that? The spring is in the way. I personally, I've tried. I was curious as to how much it affected to have the clutch shoes open from the trailing edge or the leading edge. And so I had experimented and tried it a couple times, and I couldn't really tell a difference with the way they were oriented. So we got our clutch on. Going to throw on our first bearing. Now, I'm pretty sure we're probably going to need one of these washers on the bottom. Let's try it that way first, and we'll see. And then our bearing. And then we'll throw on the clutch bell with the second bearing. We'll throw one washer there, and it looks like, did I get it right? Yeah, I think that is it. So C-clip on the end of the shaft, and that is how the OS 21 WOW Racing version / 21VG goes back together and is set up for the Redcat Aftershock 3.5. Now, how do you know which way your bearing goes on? Now, the OS here is nice enough to put a little arrow on it so you can see, but all you got to do is throw the bearing on, and you know which way the pull start pulls up from this side, so that spins the engine that way. Just spin the bearing the way that the pull start pulls it, and if it does not catch, it's on the wrong way. Spin it around, spin it the way that the pull start will spin it, and as you can see, it catches that way, so it's on proper orientation. And we'll just throw our pull start back on here. Hope y'all enjoyed the video, the little tale of the Redcat OS 21. It was a pretty heated topic there for a moment. A lot of people felt like they were getting ripped off with fake OS engines. There were people who felt that way. But like I said, turned out, and they only put the OS in it for a little bit in the beginning. After that, it was just SH21s from there on out. It was really only the first couple batches that had the OS 21 engine in them. So that is it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. Come back again. See you next time.